Welcome to episode 37 of the Toadstool Boardroom for the week of March 28th, 2023. My name's Logan Plant, and finally, we got the whole gang together because it's a big week. We got Zelda Tears of the Kingdom gameplay to talk about it. Here to talk about it with me, Chris Shriver.
Hello.
And Justin Coreyes.
Hey, everybody.
How are we doing, guys? Exciting day in Nintendo Land.
It was a big day.
Not in Nintendo Land, because that was just delisted, but...
That's dead.
Now that that's been shut down. It's a Spirit Halloween now in Nintendo Land. But it's an amazing day if you are a Zelda fan. My goodness, 10 minutes of gameplay.
Yeah,
Incredible.
So let's get right into it. This was kind of a surprise announcement on Monday of this week. It was Tuesday morning, bright and early, 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. for Chris, so he couldn't watch it live, which is always a bummer, but... it was a 13-minute presentation from Zelda series producer Eiji Aonuma. He started and opened it up saying, hey, we're done. The game is finished development, which is exciting to hear because you never know with Zelda. It could always slip, but this is happening. So that was very exciting. And then, 10 uninterrupted minutes of gameplay. Kind of the focus was 4 of Link's new abilities, which are kind of the new basis of what the Sheikah Slate ability runes were in Breath of the Wild. And those are Fuse, Ultrahand, Ascend, and Recall. All incredibly cool, and the possibilities just seem absolutely infinite with pretty much every one of them. Fuse specifically is the one that people could not stop talking about. And then there were a bunch of minor details kind of sprinkled throughout, which we'll get to, but it all took place on what they're now calling the Sky Islands, those land masses above Hyrule, up in the sky, and it was all up there, and we saw a lot of stuff, so just kind of base level impressions. Chris, we'll start with you. What'd you think of this 10 minutes of gameplay?
It was exceptionally overwhelming. Trying to like quantify just all of the things that obviously the streaming community is going to do with this game over like the next decade.
Yeah.
And just all the different permutations that they had to think of with the fusing ability, every different type of item that you can have out there and the way that they influence their behaviors. The arrow in the eyeball with like the homing attack, I thought was like such a neat little trick. Like it's going to be really cool to see what they come up with to be like, oh, an apple can do this, But on top of it, because I literally like minutes before we signed on, finished Metroid Prime Remastered, and the fact that you can teleport between like the ceiling in this, and Metroid Prime is a game where you literally don't even have fast travel. Like it's like the exact opposite. It's pretty wild to think that like of how the gameplay experience is going to change, in that a lot of Breath of the Wild is spent looking at a mountain or something to climb, and saying, okay, I don't have enough stamina for that yet. I need to wait until I'm leveled up or try to figure out a clever way to get up there. And now a lot of that barrier to entry is gone. So I wonder what types of activities or just things you're going to have to encounter or environments you're going to encounter that are going to force you to play the game differently than we did Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is very...
Sky? How do I get up to that island way the heck up there? I think could be one of them.
Yeah. No.
Anyway, sorry. Carry on.
No.
I want to say real quick that the 4 runes, or the 4 new abilities that we saw, we've seen them all before, which I thought was really cool. Like, we saw the spiky ball rolling up a hill in a previous trailer. We saw him squeezing through a ceiling. We saw him riding a rock up into the sky. And we saw the vehicles. Like, we've seen it all. And I think it's really cool that, like, we've been like, oh, we don't know anything about this game. But they have slowly been sprinkling the core mechanics of this new title at us through the last 4 years of teaser trailers. And now they finally come and tell us what they all are at once. And I think that's really cool. But yeah, kind of to go off what you were saying real quick, Chris, is that I really like the new Ascend ability that allows you to go through ceilings, because
that's really cool.
I think it'll give Tears of the Kingdom a fresh kind of feeling compared to Breath of the Wild, where, like you said, so much of its puzzles are, how do I get from point A to point B? But if we are doing something different in this same world, it feels like Nintendo is very cognizant that this is the same Hyrule as Breath of the Wild. We're going to make you interact with it in completely different ways. So the fact that kind of climbing in some cases, not all, because there'll still be cliffs and things that there's no ceiling to get up through, but in some cases is just out of the picture now. You have these vehicles you can build to just zoom across or fly through the land. Like, it's the same world, but they're trying to make it more streamlined to focus on whatever new content's in there. I think that's really smart. But I want to hear from Justin, too, on what you thought of this overview.
Yeah, so the thing that's amazing to me about the Breath of the Wild series is the way that it makes us think we have achieved freedom, and then they iterate on it, and we realize how confined we were the time before. Like, even the first Legend of Zelda, where you can go in any direction and pick a point. Like, that was revolutionary, and then all of a sudden, we can do it in 3D. Oh my god, I didn't realize that, like, look, there's up and all these things. I can go around objects. And then, like, Breath of the Wild, we're like, oh, finally, this is freedom. I'm in an open world, and I can climb any surface, and I can go where I want. And then all of a sudden, you see a trailer like this, you're like, oh my god, I didn't realize I was confined by gravity and walls and hard blocks and objects. And now they're like, it's like they're removing shackles that you did not know were shackles. And at this point, I don't know what we're going to find out in the future that we didn't know was holding us down. But, like, the fact that you can now freely travel, like, through rock vertically, or you can do that reverse mechanic where, like, if something falls down, you can ride it back up. It really was, in the past, like, verticality was your cage. Like, that's kind of how they contained you in Breath of the Wild. And with that out of the picture, sort of like what Chris is saying, it's daunting almost. Like, there's the possibilities are unimaginable. And when you see, like, when he jumps off the cliff and, like, goes all the way down to the ground into the water, you see how incredibly enormous that skybox is. And, like, I'm left stunned after that. There's so much that you can potentially do. It's left me, like, paralyzed, and I don't know what to do with that information, but I can't wait to dig in.
I'm low-key terrified of this game.
Right?
Like,
right?
Like, not even a sense of, like, it. Well, that's just it. It's like time is so limited. I mean, Metroid Prime Remastered came out in March, and I just finished it. We're at the end of the month. Like, this could conceivably be the only thing I play for the rest of the year once May hits, just because of a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
I envy anybody that, like, is in high school or college or has that free time available to really, really dig into it.
Go on summer break.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect time for this game. Yeah, totally. It is overwhelming, but we saw 10 minutes, and I think that's been the thing that has really kind of blown me away today, is that we saw 10 minutes of this game, and I thought we pretty much all walked away beaming after that presentation at what we just saw, and they didn't show any story content. Yep. This was clearly at the very beginning of the game. Like, I think that the island that we saw is kind of like the Great Plateau. In essence, it was, the enemies were wielding, like, wooden sticks. Yep. Link was using tree branches. He had 4 hearts. Like, it was very much like maybe Aonuma was just running around this island getting these 4 hand powers that he was using. Like, we don't know. Yeah. But it seems very early. Like, what else is out there? There's going to be so many things that are different.
It looked like that's the spot where it teaches you how to build a raft for the first time. Like, okay, you have now gotten fusion. Here is now where you need to use fusion. Yeah, I'll bet you're right. I'll bet this is like, we saw the first 0.1% of the game, which is incredible.
There's a little, on the mini-map in one of the shots, there's a little blue icon that looks kind of like a Shrine fast travel icon. I'm willing to bet that's like your Shrine of Resurrection. Like, that's where you started. That's where you started the game. And you just start on this island, and it introduces you to the sky right away.
That's a good catch.
Yeah, I think it's
yeah, and did you notice that, like, we got to see down on the ground at first, it was the we basically started off in the stables right next to the Twin Peaks, right? And he climbs up to it and he goes up from there. And it's interesting because the aesthetic of the area where he's up in the sky has this very strong autumn look about it, with, like, golden leaves and things like that. Like, the branch you pick up is like a different kind of wood. It's a different color. So I'm curious about ways that they're going to use just the aesthetics to, like, differentiate between different areas. Like, it's just always going to be like this, like, golden birch aesthetic, or they're, like, different, like
is each one its own little, like, pocket sky dimension type
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
Like, have we added, like, because, there were plenty of biomes on the ground. Do we now have an entire another, like, swath of biomes up in the sky? I don't know, but I want to find out.
Because to my knowledge, that golden tree aesthetic wasn't really in Breath of the Wild. That's new.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, they
was or
say
wasn't?
that in no. They said that in the direct
Okay.
today, where they were like, this is a tree that you probably have never seen before, and it's
Well,
because it is one
there
of
were
those
different
sky islands.
mushrooms around,
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
like the flora and fauna look different up there. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
I I watched this presentation like 10 times because I wrote a big article today that was kind of talking about
Sure.
breaking down some of the
That's
stuff we
why you
saw.
watched it 10 times.
I probably wouldn't have watched it that many times because I don't want to see this much, but it was fine. It was fine that I saw this much. But I love the kind of almost cheekiness of this presentation because
It's hilarious.
you know that they poured over every second that they chose to include in this
Oh,
to
every
make sure
frame.
they weren't showing too much. So when Aonuma's like, he's showing off the fuse mechanic, which we didn't really even go over the mechanics. If you're listening to the show, I assumed you watched the presentation.
Watch the
Otherwise,
freaking trailer.
you wouldn't be listening to this. But when he's going over the fuse mechanic, and he's using the Keese eyeball as the homing arrow, which we've seen before, by the way.
Yep.
Like we in a previous trailer. It's like, oh look, it's a bird flying in the sky. And then Link pulls the arrow back, pans the camera up, and right in your freaking face is one of the dragons from Breath of the Wild. And it's like, oh, they're here.
Yeah.
Like these just
Exactly what I was
tiny
thinking of.
little moments that were seeded throughout this whole thing. It opens and you're on your horse and you ride by this Korok that's wearing this giant backpack. And he's saying, I need help finding my friend. It's like, okay, Koroks are in the game in some new way.
More
It's like
side
just this
quests of some kind. Yep.
tiny little thing. And I don't know if there's probably, you could count them on one hand, the amount of developers or the amount of franchises that they could show you 10 minutes of something like this and you walk away just blown away with questions and possibilities and things. Like, hey, to bring up, like, God of War Ragnarok had a similar presentation, but I think people watched it and walked away and it was kind of a known quantity. You're like, cool, it's God of War 2, bigger, more places, enhanced combat. I watched this thing where Aonuma's like, oh, you can put raw meat on your arrow, and I'm like, I don't know what this game is, and it's so exciting.
Well,
and I
so
just love that.
he specifically calls out you could put a leaf on your arrow, but then he doesn't shoot it.
Yeah.
Why? Why can't I put a leaf?
Yeah.
To what end do I put a leaf on my arrow? I want to find that out so bad. And like the whole fusion mechanic, if you're watching, you'll see it looks like the way it works is you have your weapon hand and your shield hand, and you can fuse something to those, right? So when you pull up the little menu, there's a button for each one. And so when he has a big stick, then he sticks a pitchfork on the end of his big stick, then just has this ultra long pitchfork stick.
It's amazing. Imagine riding a horse using that. You'll be like jousting if you have that thing. It's so cool to think about. And games,
How do they even come up with this?
Yeah, we've been talking so much about Tears of the Kingdom. It's a darker world. It's a darker story. Like, oh my gosh, is Zelda dead? Whatever. And then I love like that Nintendo just doesn't take themselves too seriously in their game design. It's like,
here's a mushroom on a shield.
Exactly. It's just hilarious. It's just so fun, and above all, they want their games to be fun, and that's what we saw here. And the story could still be like dark and serious and Ganon taking over Hyrule again, or whatever it's going to be. But the moment-to-moment gameplay is, oh, I'm gonna just do these silly things to just see what happens, and I
Get
love
fanned off the edge of a sky island, and then just write it down. Well, and you're right.
Seamless.
Everything they say, everything they show, every frame is carefully planned out and extremely carefully thought out. And so a lot of what Aonuma was talking about when they talked about fusion was the way that it makes combat more accessible for people, and I think that is going to be their approach to that. The homing arrows, right? Like if you're great at the game, you don't need eyeballs to home your arrows. You'll still shoot them naturally. But if you're not great with those, he specifically says that you can use things like that, or the way that he used that like puff shroom to set up a sneak attack in the middle of a battle. I think it's a really clever way that they are adding avenues for people who either don't want to or just aren't extremely skilled with the more conventional combat of Breath of the Wild. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fuse, I think, is the thing kind of sticking with everybody. I think it's the big star from today's show.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's
It's ridiculous.
The one thing I walked away with it, like just thinking about, was, oh my god, every guide writer right now, it has to be just like,
Yep.
like eyes wide, thinking, oh my god, what are we gonna do? because you know somebody is going to go through and try to make every single combination that they can, and there are going to be ones that you don't like that shouldn't work.
Oh yeah,
but do, and they do something amazing, and we like don't understand why, but it's Nintendo, and it happens.
That's
it's
what I was
be,
thinking.
yeah.
There's going to be like a limit to how many things you can fuse together, but then somebody's going to figure out the bug that like breaks that limit or turns these things into one object. And so it's all fun and games until a week after launch we see Ganon getting punched from a Gundam. It's going to be great.
But you know that's why this game's been in development for so long. I think this system, I think it is the Fuse system, is why it's taken 6 years for this game to come out, is because they've had to test. I mean, how many materials are there? How many shields? How much stuff is there?
Yep.
Because there's so many different weapon types in this game. Like attaching something to a sword or a bow or a spear or something, it's going to be different every time. So I just can't imagine the amount of testing that went into this. And it's the same as Breath of the Wild. It's like, that must have been a nightmare to test just the concept, which we now take for granted of go any direction you want off the Great Plateau. Okay, now go any direction you want off this starting island and combine any two items in the world with each other. It's just an unbelievable sandbox that they've created. And I saw some tweets going around today about this. It's something that really what they're introducing, you could only do with a sequel. This game would take like you could really kind of look at it.
You can't have built a game while also doing this. You have to have an existing built game. And
I think the only
and fuse it on.
No, I feel like the only other way you could have done it is if it were a live service type game.
Yeah.
Where it's like, here is the platform, and we talk about this a lot. I think we talked about this last week. Here's the platform of Zelda. Yeah, with Mario Kart. And then, here's all the new things that we're introducing with it.
Which is like Minecraft. I mean, this is kind of becoming like Zelda Minecraft, even more than Breath of the Wild was in some ways.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy, but much more curated experience in some ways. It's just so insanely cool. And I think that there were maybe some concerns of like, is this game going to be ambitious? Is this game going to have the same cultural impact as Breath of the Wild? Like I've been actually re-listening to a lot of podcasts over the last few weeks from the month Breath of the Wild came out, just to kind of remind myself, what were people saying at the time? And back then it was texting all your friends saying, oh my gosh, did you know you could do this? And I've been kind of thinking, man, is Tears of the Kingdom going to have that? And now with this, the answer is yes. Like, did you know you could build this vehicle or fuse this thing or do this thing in this way? They have just totally rebuilt the sandbox with these 4 new mechanics. And
that was exactly what I thought we were potentially going to be missing, was those like, oh my God moments.
Yeah. I can't believe it.
Okay, he sticks a rock on his stick to make a club. And there was also an option to stick it on his shield. Why do you want a giant boulder on your shield? That sounds like a pain to carry. What can you do with it? I want to find out.
Yeah. Yeah, can you shield surf with that? With the rock?
Can I super glue a chicken to my shield and let him hit the chicken and get, like, the cuckoo invasion?
Can you attach dubious food to your arrow and shoot it at enemies to cause more damage? I was thinking about that today. That would be really funny.
Just I know, raining dubious arrows.
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's just like...
You better.
Yeah, I thought this was an insanely cool presentation for... Clearly, Nintendo over the last year has been of two minds. They've been of... We want to market this game to sell it, but we want to hide as much as possible. So for them to just come out for 10 minutes and be like, look at this raft, look at this meat arrow. Okay, we'll see you in a month. Just like mic drop. Yeah. You're the best, Nintendo. You rock. It was just awesome.
Undefeated. And like, and now it seems like, okay, I think I know why they didn't show as much. They probably didn't know for sure how much of this was actually going to work until it like actually came together.
I don't know how you guys feel about weapon durability, but there's a big change to that in this. Once again, going back to the fuse mechanic, which is that we don't know this for sure, but it seems like when you fuse a weapon that is damaged, it fully restores that weapon's durability up to the max durability of your new fused weapon. So Aonuma said the tree branch with the rock has higher durability than the tree branch by itself. So if you take a 10% durability tree branch left, like it is glowing red in the menu, and fuse it with a rock, is that back up to 100%? Because if so, there you go, durability haters. It's solved. Just slap a rock on your tree branch and you're good to go. And I think that's just the most hilarious solution, because it would have been so easy to just eliminate the system or say you can pay 50 rupees to this guy to restore your weapon. But Nintendo thinks of a way that only they can, that we would have never thought of, to be like, oh yeah, just combine it with a rock or a stick and it's better now. It's just
also
amazing.
Can I use recall on a weapon?
Yeah. I was wondering about that.
I don't know. I'd love to know.
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
What are the chances? What are the chances that they have like almost like a blacksmith type thing where you get, a high level, a high end sword that they would have in Breath of the Wild? You can go, all right, I've gathered like, they had like the pale ore, right? And like the sapphire and the rupees and stuff like that you could gather. If you could like fuse those together and then make like a really, like an ice-based weapon or a fire-based weapon based on that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you could fuse jelly onto it for some of those effects. But yeah, if you could do different ores with different effects, that could be really cool.
That could be cool.
Yeah.
But
like, can I slap a diamond on something and make it super durable?
Yeah, yeah. But in another world, I feel like kind of the Breath of the Wild philosophy, and now Tears of the Kingdom, is these are extremely complex systems that anybody can kind of conquer. And so I think with the crafting, I don't think Nintendo wants you to go to some blacksmith and go through all these menus to craft something.
That's
I
true.
think they want you to hold up, open the material, and scroll over to a ruby and hit A.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good point.
What if you can find like a rusted sword and like flint and combine them into something, right? I don't know. I have no idea. And here's the other thing that we didn't see in that trailer was any usage of Sheikah Slate powers. So like, what's going on with that? Like, where does that come into play? Like,
Zelda has them in the underground, and you play as Zelda.
And then she fell in the hole. I see. You heard it here first, folks. Yeah, but like, the incredible thing is that they showed basically none of this, and I feel like my understanding of this game has both increased tenfold, but also decreased 100-fold, because now I feel like I know so little about like how this is going to work, and I like that.
And there were like last year when Elden Ring came out, Chris said on this show, like, I think Nintendo's looking at Elden Ring and they're worried. I don't think they care.
I don't think they are. Yeah, I think they're doing what Nintendo does, and that's whatever they want. Honestly,
they're doing what they do, which is weird as hell.
Yeah,
and the best, just unbelievably cool. Like, yeah, this is stuff that like it is closer to like Fortnite or Minecraft, not what other open world games are doing, but they're taking these things, putting their own spin on it, and polishing it up to 1,000, and then giving it to the world, and it's so cool. Zelda's the coolest. I can't wait for this game. And I don't know if there's really any other game where we would see 10 minutes and talk about it for 30. Because it's like, if you saw 10 minutes of like Fire Emblem Engage, you'd be like, looks very cool. We talk about the new stuff for a little bit and move on. But this is just, the new form of Zelda is about sparking the imagination, and I think they did that for all of us today. And yeah, super cool. All right, we got some listener comments about this, which I'm going to pull up. This is on Toadstool Boardroom Twitter at ToadstoolBR. I asked you, Boardroom's assembling tonight to talk about Tears of the Kingdom. What did you think of today's gameplay presentation? And we got a few responses as of showtime. Jay said, I wasn't too excited for Tears of the Kingdom, but after that video, I immediately pre-ordered it. The possibilities seem limitless. I haven't pre-ordered a game since Breath of the Wild. Awesome.
Wow.
Oscar says,
Good
I think it's a great gameplay element to have the enemies hold modified weapons too. We didn't talk about that. They're holding fused weapons and like...
Oh, yeah.
That's going to be so cool. It can give wonder to players as to how to create the weapons themselves and to keep on experimenting with different item combinations. Yeah, Oscar, I think that, plus that there's going to be more mobs in this game. We've seen Redeads, we've seen new dragons, we've seen a lot of new things. The new constructs today, plus new weapon combos, it's going to be way more variety than Breath of the Wild had on the enemy front, which was one of my big criticisms of that game, and they have addressed that one entirely.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot more than just palette swaps of the same like 3 dudes, it looks like.
Well, yeah, and it's not like you. This one has a club. This one has this. It's like no, this one. I don't know what this one has, and I don't know how to deal with it.
Instead of club, bigger club, it's like this one's got a club. This one has meat tied to a stick. This one has like a bunch of rocks strapped to some TNT or something.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
And the more enemy types there are, the more materials there are to strap to your weapons and your arrows and see what happens. Which another thing that came to mind was like, after probably 30 hours in Breath of the Wild, your inventory is flooded with crap you never use and never need again. Except for very specific purposes.
Yeah, except for selling it eventually.
Like, oh, I have 100 key size. That's 100 homing arrows. Like that's just amazing. Yeah. Tim says, I didn't want to watch it for spoilers, but I'm glad I did anyway. Those new abilities are absolute game changers and take what was already a living and reactive world and dialed it to 11. I'm really excited to see how the player is tested throughout the journey. Yeah, this is like the opening area. This is the beginning of the game.
I think you're right.
We're already this excited about it. Yeah. And finally, go ahead.
Real quick. What are the chances that they give you each ability like bit by bit? Because Breath of the Wild did that, I believe, right?
Yeah,
like where it was like the first like 3 hours. Yeah.
It was all on the Great Plateau, and you couldn't leave it till you had them all. So it was very much the tutorial. So we'll see if they do that.
Each time you got one, you had to use it as well. I would imagine it's gonna be pretty similar to that. Like I was saying before, like it feels like that raft scene is like where it's
like it's meant
stuff for the first time. Yeah.
It's like, oh, here's 3 logs and 2 turbines. What do you think you should do?
Figure it out. Yeah.
And finally, Harry says, my body is ready. My wallet with the OLED Pro Controller case and collector's edition is not. So yeah, let's get into that.
Yeah.
There was new hardware announced today, and that is it was previously leaked like 8 months ago, like a long time ago.
A while ago.
Leaked. And this is the Tears of the Kingdom Switch OLED model. It's coming 2 weeks before the game, April 28th for $359.99. It does not come with the game. This is pretty standard what they've been doing. They did it for Pokemon, they did it for Splatoon. $10 more than the OLED 2 weeks before the game. And it's got that the Hylian crest with the Triforce on the white dock, and then it's got gold and green Joy-Cons on the side with some of the new kind of Zonai, which Justin wants to talk about too, kind of iconography on them. And then the Pro Controller, I'm very confused by this one. It has black and white handles, which seems to be going against the design of the rest of the hardware, and also a very similar Hylian crest on the controller itself. There's also a new case, which has some of the similar logos, but yeah, those are coming out. The Pro Controller and case are coming out on May 12th with the game for $74.99 and $24.99.
I feel like the controller looks that way for people like me who got the white OLED. And they're like, hey, we get that you just got this. Yeah, so this will at least match the system that you just upgraded to a year ago. Okay. Or 2 years ago, whenever it was.
Yeah. Yeah, what do you guys think of these designs, though? Chris, do you like the Pro Controller?
Oh, I love the Pro Controller. Yeah, I think it's very fitting. It's a very elegant looking design. I know Logan's not a fan of the white handle. The case I could do with or without. Like it's a case. The Joy-Con themselves and the dock, I will say, they look much better in like the high res imagery that we now have than what we got previously. Like I think those original renders came out that like somebody took off of like whatever, like a super low res photo, and we all were kind of like, really? That's the move we're going with. I think it's more surprising to me that it took this long to get the full like Zelda kitted out Switch. And this is the one. Like you kind of assume they're going to go with like a full gold one, and they didn't. It's kind of a bummer to me. But I mean, if you like green, sure, why not?
I know. I think one of the biggest.
You like green?
Bummers,
I have a green iPhone.
One of the biggest bummers of the Switch Gen for me has been its special editions. I don't like that the docks are always the black or white. Like besides Animal Crossing, they've never mixed it up. They just put logos on the pre-existing docks, and I think it's a little bit lazy. And it would be much cooler to have a gold dock. Like, they made a gold 3DS. They made all their handhelds. They've made gold versions.
They made a ton of 3DSs though.
Yes,
like
they did.
The amount of special edition 3DSs is insane.
Yeah, but like make a gold dock. I really was hoping for that. Although I do really like this one. That being said, I really like the Joy-Con. I think the Joy-Con are very, very nice. I wish they were selling them separately because I'm going to have to like go on eBay and like bid on them separate and pay way too much for Joy-Con. They're going to break in 5 years. But yeah. What do you think of the new hardware, Justin?
I love it. I love the white and gold aesthetic. I think looks fantastic. I like that it's a little bit bolder than the existing OLED models, and will stand out a little bit more as a showcase item. Which if you're into these sorts of things, which if you're watching or listening to this show, you are. It's kind of nice to let that fly a little bit. The Joy-Con look great. I love the concentric circles. I do love that big Triforce on the center of the dock. I think that looks great.
Yeah.
Like you, I do think the Pro Controller, like even the black one, like it interrupts the pattern that's on like the central portion. It like just sort of stops. It's like it kind of looks like, at least in the images that are out, like they just snapped two handles on this like central thing. So it's not as cohesive, but I think the pattern looks really good. And yeah, honestly, that carrying case looks sick as hell. I love it.
Yeah, I'm undecided on what I'm buying yet. We'll see. I don't want to get irrational and buy the whole console.
Yeah, I'm not going to. Really want to, but I'm.
Do
not
either of you
going to.
have an OLED at this point or no?
That's it. So
you both
bought,
do. Okay.
I bought the OLED within the last year.
Okay. Yeah.
I bought the OLED the weekend Kirby came out, which was a year ago, pretty much exactly. So I've had it for a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
In fact, now that I think about it, I believe I bought the OLED in late August because I bought it to take with me to PAX West.
Oh.
Yeah, I honestly, I think that I'm coming to a point where I'm kind of done with special edition consoles. Just I like the setup in my room of like I have the Series S, the PS5, and the white OLED. All three are white, like they match.
This is the generation. Together. Yeah, this is the generation that did that to me. Because before it was like, let me get the Gears of War Xbox and the the Uncharted PS4.
Some pretty garish consoles.
Yeah.
I also think it just works better for handhelds. Like, I love special edition 3DSs. I think the faceplates they did on the new models were awesome. And going back even further to, like, some of the Game Boys and original DSs they did, very cool. But, I don't know, there's something about not something that's, like, personal in your hands and you put it in the drawer in your pocket when you're done, rather than it is displayed for everyone to see all the time. I just think there's something different about a home console versus handheld special edition. So
you're getting older.
I just want the Joy-Con.
You're maturing.
Yeah, you're maturing. Honestly, like if nobody's seen it, I'm sure if you go through my Twitter, like you'll find it. Like I have everything in my living room is either white, wood, or black, as far as electronics are concerned. And it just looks so clean. And the second you put something that is like out of place there, like I spray painted an N64 just to make it look like it was going to fit.
Nice.
Because otherwise it's just like, what is that? What's that spaceship sitting over there?
Which
All right,
exactly. I hate the PS5, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, that is
That's
in
why I hate the PS5.
yeah, that's in a cabinet with the door shut unless I'm playing it.
Yep. Trying to keep that thing hidden. Whereas like a Switch like this, again, it is like those tones are neutral enough that like it'll look good with pretty much any setup.
Yeah.
But again, it's bold enough to it's on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
No. All right, I know Justin wants to talk about the lore, but before we do that, Chris, any last things that you want to say about Tears of the Kingdom, this gameplay showcase that you haven't got?
Is that what your way of saying because Justin's not going to shut up?
No, I just want to end on the lore because I feel like the fewest people care about it compared to us. So we'll finish with it. No,
now that I finished Metroid, I am excited to dive into Skyward Sword because I kept saying I was going to do it.
Whoa!
Before this game came out and this direct happened, and I was like, I really need to play that game.
You're running out of time.
I know.
On Switch HD or
yeah.
Oh yeah, don't do it any other way.
It's an amazing version of that game.
It's actually a pretty good game.
It turned me around on that game last year when I played it. I really like Skyward Sword now. I did not prior to the Switch version.
So, we'll see if I stick with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The beginning is not as long and drawn out as you think. It really isn't.
My save is already past the beginning.
Oh, nice.
So I just have to pick it back up.
I like the story, the beginning of that anyway.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the big lore implications from this Zelda gameplay, which is that the Zonai were confirmed. And if you don't know, what the Zonai are. They're an ancient race that was mentioned in Breath of the Wild in multiple places. There's the Zonai ruins. There's a ancient barbarian armor set.
Yeah, extremely limited places. Yeah.
Yes.
So the Zonai are referenced in I think one location name and in the barbarian set itself. But it also establishes a certain iconography, a certain like visual design that we see that repeats and basically any place you see ancient ruins in Breath of the Wild. And so that pattern's been present and persisting throughout what we've been seeing of Tears of the Kingdom. And so it's one of those
in a
things
much
where,
louder way, right? Like
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yep, he's wearing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, it's one of those things where, like, yeah, the lore implications of this trailer have my mind spinning. You know, Zelda's always been wishy-washy with things like timelines, not just from game to game, but within games. So there's already a power that like changes the flow of time now that we're clearly establishing. The Zonai are an ancient race that has been gone for a very, very long time. And not only are we seeing this iconography, but if you pay attention, when Link destroys one of the constructs, you can see the items it drops. And again, these things are all very intentional. And it specifically, if you read the text above it, there's a Zonai charge to pick up. This is like the first time out of the context of literally a map and one armor set that it's even acknowledged that this word exists. And so here's something completely out of time that they've really been strongly hinting at. And then you combine that with like, Link's robe, basically, like, away from like a modern tunic, like this with the long flowing hair and things like that. I have no idea how this all ties together. And one of the things that a lot of people theorized was that, like, in the early trailers, when we saw this long-haired version of Link, maybe that was a Link from the past, from a different time. But at the beginning of this trailer, we see him down in what is very clearly like Hyrule of today.
Yeah.
And so it's not that. And I'm even more confused, and I love it. I have no idea what's happening. And the more I try and like sort it out, just the more possibilities pop up in my mind. But like, yeah, like the Zonai in particular, that this is a deep like Zelda like nerd lore thing that is like being pushed to the forefront of the story apparently. And I am here for it. I can't wait to see what happens with this.
And there are plenty of theories that the Zonai and the Twilight of Twilight Princess are one and the same, which would be extremely cool for a pair of Twilight Princess superfans that you have sitting on this panel right now. That would be incredibly cool. And just look at the color. The green
exactly. That's what I was going to say. That, like that glowing green color. Yeah.
And what's the name of the three things that you collect in the opening hours of Twilight Princess? Anyone?
The three pieces of the
isn't
mask?
Isn't it tears?
Well, you also do collect tears in the exact same vessel the Link has on his hip. But you also collect the fused shadows.
The fused shadow, that's it. Yep.
Fuse is a name of a new mechanic today, I'm just saying. Like, come on. This game looks super linked to Twilight Princess, which would be so cool. That would be so cool.
And then again, like floating islands in the sky, which is a throwback all the way to Skyward Sword, which is the beginning of the series. And Logan, we talked about this privately. Like, there's a lot of theories about where Breath of the Wild even exists in the timeline, and if it exists at some kind of like convergence within it, or all of these things fuse. I don't know, but it's incredible. But the fact that like they're actually like leaning into some of these like deeper lore items. I'm sure they're still going to be like wishy-washy overall, but it really seems like there's significant story implications that they're taking pretty seriously with this. Yeah. And I can't wait to see it and see, frankly, when we walk away with more questions than answers. Like, that's so much of what makes this series special to me.
Like
the thing that I think is going to kill me through this whole experience is going to be
listening to us.
Well, no, well, not in the sense that you think. Like, it's going to be me because I'm going to be taking my time with this, like having to avoid everything.
Oh yeah,
and simultaneously being
sensory deprivation everywhere I go,
and having to be like, okay, if I'm out with friends and someone I by happenstance hear somebody talking about this game, I'm gonna be, shut up, I'm not there yet. I don't have that story beat. I don't know what you're talking about. Like I wonder how long I'll make it before some major plot point is spoiled. Because and then on top of it, like just the thread of learning everything that's going on, in the story itself. I don't know. It just seems like it's daunting. It's scary.
Yeah, it's going to be challenging.
Which is hard. We talked about it on this show, but it's at the exact same time as all of that, it's one of the games that is designed to talk to your friends about. Like it is. So it's so hard, and it's hard to strike that balance.
And that's from a gameplay standpoint. But here's the crazy thing though, like as much as I think Breath of the Wild is much more filled with story than I think people get credit for, with cool opening and closing and like memories to collect and environmental storytelling, like what would be a spoiler from that game? Like, there's one at the beginning involving the old man, but like other than that, what can somebody actually tell you from a story standpoint that like blows something for you? There's really not. That's really not how the story works. And so I have to tend to think that this will be pretty similar because like because
it's very moment based, like moment focused. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if I were playing Breath of the Wild for the first time, I wouldn't have wanted to hear like, hey, the Rito are back in this game, like from Wind Waker. I wouldn't have wanted to know that.
I suppose, but I think if you overhear somebody talking about Tears of the Kingdom in the bar, it's going to be because they talked about the time that they beat a moblin to death with a stick with a fish on the end of it.
Yeah, totally. So that stuff I'm excited to hear and talk to you both about, but I'm with Chris that it's like, I don't want to hear about too specific. Like, don't tell me where you were, but you can tell me what you were doing.
Yeah. Like, there's going to be a lot of testing the water when we talk about it, when it's like, hey, if I said purple tree, like, ooh, the purple tree.
Yeah. I can't wait.
Right.
I was just so happy with today. It was just so awesome to see it after months of silence and just teasers, and for them to give us this was just so exciting and out of nowhere. And literally a week ago, since I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks, Chris and I were talking last week, like, man, if they don't show Zelda till I'm already in Japan, like, are you guys going to do a show or what? And here we go.
We were trying to pick the date, and it was like, it's either going to be next week or it's going to be like 2 weeks after the Mario movie comes out. Yep. And if it's not that, then they're not doing one, and that wouldn't make sense.
Yep. But it was today, and that was...
It was today. I'm so glad you were here. I really am.
I'm sure we still don't have like the launch trailer, which again, the Breath of the Wild one is one of the best trailers I've ever seen. I'm willing to bet we're going to get like a 5-minute one that just makes me want to burst into tears on the spot.
And actually tells us what's going on in this game. Like it actually tells us a little bit of
but I don't want it to be like, I don't want it to have like the narrator, you know what I mean? Where they're like, in Tears of the Kingdom, you will explore a world. And like,
that's like the Breath of the Wild launch trailer. It was just scenes and music and all
ambiance and vibes. And
so it was all feelings, but it wasn't clear what any of it meant or what had happened.
Yep.
But it had its own arc. And like when it slowly like trickles in like Zelda and then reveals. Yeah. I could talk about that trailer forever.
We got to move on, but man, I keep coming up with new things I want to say, which is that the Sheikah have completely disappeared from this world. Link doesn't have his slate, the towers are gone, the shrines are gone, no guardians. Like, it seems like Zonai stuff has replaced it all. Like, the constructs are kind of like the new guardians, and there's these new weird glowing towers that don't look Sheikah in Origin, and there's not a shrine to be seen anywhere. Instead, there's these like little like stone structures with like the green lights swirling around them, which are Zonai in Origin, and it's like, it's just gone. Like, what happened to it? It's super bizarre.
Well, and you know, we see pockets of like malice spread throughout on the ground down below. There's that amazing scene of Link just in free fall where you're guiding your fall down, and you're so high up. I feel like you could go basically anywhere by the time you hit the ground. There's so much.
Yeah.
What happens when you don't land in a river?
I would assume die.
Like, how is he? Yeah, but is he landing feet first, or is he just splatting on the ground? That's what I want to know.
Well, that can happen in Breath of the Wild, right?
Yeah, that's true. There's the thing, exactly, where you launch too close to the ground and you just belly flop.
Ragdolls. Yeah.
With some of that.
Yeah. And I'm going to be gliding around Hyrule with my Majora's Mask glider, which is an amiibo unlock, and it's going to be a great time.
All right,
It's
so
gonna be a great time.
I have the trailer like basically on loop in the background while we talk about this, and I just looked over like near the very very end before they cut away, and there's something that looks like a little like some kind of lizard bird thingy carrying a bokoblin.
Yeah, we've seen that in previous
Oh,
trailers.
yeah.
Like, yeah, mobs are just gonna drop on you now from the sky.
Yeah,
which is
just getting
cool.
bomb
Very cool.
goblins.
Just please have dungeons. That's all.
That's
I was
it.
hoping they would confirm that today, but
That's the magic word we're waiting for.
yep, it really is.
Skyward Sword is now in my Switch.
Yeah, all right. All right. That was 45 minutes of Zelda. So we got to move on.
Could easily do 45 more.
Justin, you were just at PAX East.
I sure was.
And Nintendo was there with a very cool Zelda statue. Did Nintendo have anything else there for you to try out? Oh, beautiful. That's the Tears of the Kingdom pin.
Little something. Little something.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, you know what? Nintendo's a funny company because like they'll go to something like a PAX East when they have literally nothing to show, and they had nothing. They had 2 huge booths and were showing nothing. Like one was like basically a Nintendo versus thing where people were playing video games against each other, and then another one was like what was it? Like there's like Smash and like a bunch of other stuff. So it was like all existing stuff, not previewing anything. The closest they came was they had that really cool life-size Link statue with the arm stretched out and it all, like glowing and green, and I'm jealous, and I wish mine did that. And so of
Your
course I got a
arm?
picture of that there. Yeah.
Okay.
What? You don't want a glow arm?
I don't know.
Oh my God! Imagine waking up in the middle of the night, having to go to the bathroom. How convenient!
Oh
would
yeah,
that be?
just you can see
Just
through the
10%,
hallway.
just so you can see the hallway. Where's the cat?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So useful.
Yeah.
Amazing. Who doesn't want that?
Right.
Yeah, so that was fantastic. And so like there was Nintendo oriented stuff to see because there were a lot of especially indie developers there showing some cool games that were going to appear on the Switch, but the big end itself was really only there just to sort of like connect with the community and hand out pins and stuff, which I think is great.
All right, we're running short on time, but if you had one game coming to Switch that you wanted to talk about real quick.
One. Oh my goodness. Okay. Let me decide which of these do I want to do.
You can shout out the others too, but I think we only have time to hear about.
All right. Very quick one. Toxic Crusaders is somehow they turned the movie Toxic Avengers, which was a rated R action horror movie, into a Saturday morning cartoon in the style of Ninja Turtles in the early '90s. I was pretty sure this was a fever dream that only I remembered till I walked to a giant booth that was colored with all of these characters from this like short-lived show, and is now a arcade style beat 'em up. Got my hands on it. Plays like an old school Ninja Turtles game, and it plays super well. It's really funny. At one point, I picked up a mid-sized sedan and hit somebody in the face with it, and of course there was an entire cooked turkey underneath it, so I ate the turkey to get my health back. It was hilarious and weird, and like a perfect like couch co-op game on your Switch. So like that was really really cool. The other one that I loved was Goons, Legends, and Mayhem. It's almost like a Blades of Steel for the NES, except really goofy nowadays, where it's a hockey game. It's like 3v3. You have different classes and characters, and it plays like really fast. Like games are like 2 minutes. They're really cool. They're really fun. I loved it. It's I made the joke. It's like somebody took the game from Rocket League and put it on ice. What a concept. So yeah, that's it. That's my speed run of things from PAX that I like.
Awesome. Sounds fun. You saw the news today. No one's going to be at E3. So it's looking like the next big thing will be PAX West. Labor Day weekend in Seattle.
Yep, which I still need to talk you guys into going to.
We'll see.
When is that?
Labor Day.
It's usually the first week of September.
Oh wow, I'll have a baby by then.
Yeah, that's
Maybe.
crazy.
I'll babysit.
Oh,
At PAX.
Sure.
All right, and the last thing, I had some news here, but I actually want to hear about Chris beating Metroid Prime Remastered.
Yes.
Let's hear about some game impressions.
Proud of you, Chris.
Thanks, bud. So I had 100%ed it back on the GameCube, and I got 79% of the way through on this one, and I was like, I think that's fine. I've walked around enough. While I think there's a lot that Metroid Prime does exceptionally well, the lack of a fast travel, and I understand why it's not there, but like it really starts to become a graining experience by the end of it. When you're like, I was trying to not use a guide, and there were like 2 artifacts left, and I was like, forget it. Like, where are these things? I've walked this entire game like how many times at this point? But I mean, outside of that, like it's a pretty incredible game. I remember the fight with Ridley more than like I remember seeing the end of that game. But I thought Wrigley was the end, and then it happened, and I was like, oh wait, no, it's not. Like as soon as it ended, I was like, no, there's a whole other section. But no, I mean, if you've never played it, definitely check it out. But no, it is a 20-year-old game. If 20-plus-year-old game, really. If you played it back on the GameCube and you want to get all nostalgic for it, like, what are you doing? Go play it. It's like one of the best GameCube titles, if not the best GameCube title that was out there. I wonder. Logan's shaking his head. If I went back and played,
GX is the best GameCube game.
Well, Wind Waker, F-Zero, yeah, F-Zero. It's apples and oranges.
Yeah.
But that and Twilight Princess, because it's been quite some time since I played either.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's better than Wind Waker.
Yeah.
Twilight Princess.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, I still got to get through it. I've been distracted by a number of things and not actually playing that many games. But one game I was debating today if I was going to bring this up on the show, and I decided it was Nintendo adjacent enough, and I just beat Resident Evil 4 Remake. I never played the GameCube original.
How was it?
It is really good. It's really good. Yeah, it's a ton of fun. So I don't have that context of the original to kind of compare to. But I really, I've talked about this on the show recently, but kind of when I was like in college and I just gotten a PlayStation 4, my tastes kind of started to drift towards that super cinematic, like serious story, Uncharted, Last of Us, that kind of thing. And then as I've gotten a couple years past that, I'm really drifting back to super gamey games. I love it when video games are video game-ass video games. And Resident Evil 4 is maybe the most video game-ass game I've ever played. And it is so awesome for that. Like, the story is crap. Like, it is just a joke. It does not matter at all. But it's there. But then, like, the gunplay is amazing. The scenarios they're taking you through are so good. It is paced extremely well. I played RE2 Remake and now this one. And RE2 Remake is, like, scary because it's like I don't know, you're creeping through these hallways and things jump out. But for me, RE4 was scary because it's like, oh my god, I am so overwhelmed by everything on the screen right now. There is just so much going on all the time, and in a really good way, because you will squeak through. And I was playing it with a friend. We do this thing where we pass the controller back and forth every 60 seconds, and it's amazing. It's just insane. And there was a encounter that we failed twice, and then we won the last time with our final bullet in the chamber. And it was just like, oh, we did it. That's incredible. It. Like, yeah, it was some incredible moments. Yeah, we marathoned it in like 2 days. And
nice.
Yeah, it's a great game. I don't think it's one of the all-time greats, like it's getting the praise for, or that maybe the original was at the time. Yeah, but it's a really good remake, and I'd love to see Nintendo remake some of their games in this way. When Nintendo remakes a game, it's very faithful, right? Metroid Prime Remastered, that is Metroid Prime. The Zelda 3D remakes, they retool a couple of things, but just quality of life things to make the game a little bit easier to play and less cumbersome. We've never really seen them do like, hey, it's Wind Waker, but we added in 2 dungeons that were cut. Right. And we changed the way you do things.
Or like a total from the ground up, like Blue Point style, like
yeah, they've never really done that.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. The only time I can think of is maybe Link's Awakening.
Yeah. The DX.
Yeah.
But that's still or the Switch version, or
the Switch version. Yeah,
it's still pretty faithful though.
Well, yeah, but at least it's new art style and things like that.
And the 3DS Zelda games were kind of that.
Yeah, even
it's not like a console release.
Honestly,
the 3DS Zelda games.
Like Majora?
Yeah, Ocarina of Majora. Yeah,
but it's still
that's more of a port,
the same
I feel
game.
Like.
Yeah. Like, RE4 Remake they took it. It's like if you watched a movie and then made
yeah,
it
exactly. It's like somebody's watching it and just like building that like as they go and making adjustments. Yeah, man. Resident Evil 4 was such a big deal when it came out. It was part of the Capcom 5, right, from back in the day, which
Beautiful Joe.
Hey, that game is rad. I would happily get a new beautiful Joe.
I would love one.
Of course, Shinji Mikami swore that this was never going to appear on anything other than the GameCube, or he'd cut off his own head. So
that's on literally everything under the sun.
Right? Yeah. I think my Power Strip plays it. But I'm so glad it got a remake, because it is like, in terms of video game legacy, it is, I think, one of the best and greatest games ever made. But like it was also like the last game that was still clutching on to those like old school tank controls, which makes it almost unplayable by today's standards. It's so hard to go back and play that game if you're not a super fan of it. And even just modernizing that, sort of like, actually like we saw with Metroid, like just modernizing controls does so much to make a game playable nowadays. I haven't picked this up yet. I'm probably gonna wait till October, because I really like a spooky game around that time of year, and it's probably a little too scary for my taste for the rest of the year, because I am a coward when it comes to video games.
Me too. It's why I played it with a friend. It's because I can't play these games by myself. I can't do it.
Oh yeah, exactly. But it's a video game as hell, but it's so good.
It is.
The original, Chris?
The original is one of my favorite games. I actually played Resident Evil 4 again on PS4, or the PS4 port last year. And then earlier, I think it was around the same time, it got ported to the Oculus Quest. And it's, you want to talk about changing the controls. That's a completely different experience.
I have it on Quest. Yeah. I've never played it. I'm never going to.
It's kind of cool. Like I never finished it, but I got pretty far. I think I got to like the lake monster.
I would get
further than I thought I would.
The first chainsaw coming at my neck, and I would be good to go.
Yeah.
But you can parry with a kitchen knife in the new game. It's hilarious.
Who doesn't?
Oh my god!
You know what? Okay, new remake notwithstanding. You know what the absolute best version of RE4 is, though?
The Wii version.
Bar none. The Wii version.
Yeah.
It's feature complete. It's it takes advantage of the more powerful hardware on the Wii, and actually using the
Wii mode
controller, like, to shoot, actually kind of relieves a lot of that like painful tank controls. And it so then you can actually like kneecap a dude and hit him, and then roundhouse kick him in the head. It's a really good version of that game.
Man, I must have played this game on like 6 different platforms.
Everything you picture.
Yeah.
Every controller you use. Like,
I have the chainsaw controller in my basement.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, but the remake, it is a really cool game. And yeah, just even my only experience with RE has been 2 Remake. I've played some demos of things here and there, but 2 Remake was the one where I'm like, this looks amazing. I'm going to suck it up and play this. And I did, and it's great. I love that game. And so that was kind of my frame of reference for Resident Evil. And so then when the opening cutscene is like, Leon S. Kennedy has trained to be like a super fighter in the last 6 years, and now he can kick zombies in the neck and kill them. I'm like, this is just awesome. It's awesome. And I know that the scales tipped too far that direction moving forward with 5 and 6, but 4 is a really fun balance of action and horror with emphasis on the action. Really cool game. And yeah, since I'm a totally kind of RE rookie, I didn't know that at the merchant, he sells a rocket launcher. And I assumed it was just like a really good weapon where ammo was really hard to find. And then we save up $80K and we buy this thing and we go to upgrade it. And it's like, you can't. We go into the menu and it's like a one-time shot thing. And we're like, oh, okay, so we'll save it for a boss. And then we get to Salazar, and my friend just pulls it out and just boom, one-shots him. Cutscene plays, boss fight over, and we just crack up. It's just hilarious. We bought 2 more of those and did it to 2 more bosses throughout the rest of the campaign. Yeah, it was awesome.
It's so good.
We beat it in 11 hours. We got an A, which I was proud of for neither of us having really played Resident Evil. We got
very respectable.
But we did 3 boss fights, which was part of our time saver. But
yeah, that probably helped because you shaved off so much time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were like, I think it actually is what got us the A, because we were 45 minutes away from a B rank. I looked it up, and 3 boss fights, that's about that long.
Yeah, you spend 15 minutes on each.
Yeah, and including the final boss. We shot it, and then it didn't go down, and we're like, Does it not work on the final boss? We got out our pistol. We shot it once, and it was over. So the final boss is rocket launcher plus one shot. It's funny.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, not on Nintendo platforms now, but I don't know. It felt fine since it was a pretty strong ties historically too.
I mean,
Important
if
part
you
of the
want to,
history.
if you want to try the original, it is available on Switch.
I actually bought it. It was on sale when the remake came out. It was $5.
Nice.
So
There you
I
go.
grabbed it to just see what it's about. So yeah. All right, I think that's going to do it for us this week in the Boardroom. Splatfest this weekend. Justin, I didn't hear your pick. Which is real, Aliens, Loch Ness Monster, or Bigfoot?
As a Pacific Northwesterner, I got to go with Bigfoot.
Nice.
Mm.
Nice. Okay. I think I'm going Loch Ness Monster, which
Greater.
I'm also a Pacific Northwesterner, but I'm not picking it.
I'm going to tell Sasquatch you said that.
But play this weekend.
You're going to hear about this.
Okay. Friday through Sunday, Splatfest, Splatoon 3. Pick it back up. Come on. Let's play some Splatoon. I'll be on doing a little bit of it while I'm watching baseball, which starts this weekend.
Go
I'm
ahead.
excited about. Yeah, but that's it. Another episode of the Boardroom in the books. We're a weekly Nintendo show here Thursdays at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. This Saturday, I'm going to tease this now. We're sitting down to rank the top 15 Nintendo games of all time. It's not going to come out until these are the shows that are going to come out when I'm in Japan in April and May, but we're pre-recording them this Saturday. So if you're one of the early listeners of this show, I know there's a bunch of you out there, then you have a chance to email in your thoughts, and we might read them on the show if we get enough. So send that in, toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com. Find the show on Twitter @toadstoolbr. But for now, you can find Chris online at...
Drives93.
You can find Justin at...
At KOREIS.
You can find myself at Logan J. Plant. Thanks so much for listening. What is the best Nintendo game of all time? Will it be Tears of the Kingdom? Maybe we should wait a month to do this, but we're not going to. Have a great week. We'll catch you next time right here in the Toadstool Boardroom.